Today, it's your birthday. Guess what? Yesterday was too, and so is tomorrow. Not sure what that means? Let us introduce you to this powerful concept in our community. We are thrilled you have joined. We are Helene and Christina, and our mission is to empower, teach, and remind women to celebrate themselves. It was in the office as well as in our personal lives that we were seeing women feeling seen but not alive during their messy middle life stage. Combined, Helene and I have over 35 years' experience as therapists in private practice. And so we were all about the messy middle. If you're curious about how we define this life stage, or if you find yourself experiencing it, go back to episode 2 in season 1.
We come to you not as your therapist, but rather two women in this life stage with you. You are friends. Our podcast promises to talk about the hard or the uncomfortable topics in a way to empower you, laugh along the way as part of the healing, and absolutely to find joy in life. We strive to find the meaning in the middle of the messy or unknowing. What sets us apart, you might ask? Why listen to us when you choose any other podcast? We leave you with gifts with each and every episode. These may come in the form of actionable tools or strategies, invitations to stay exactly where you are, and sometimes thought-provoking ideas. So now that we're friends, let's make this official. Christina and I would absolutely love to help start your Thursday mornings, so make sure you follow the show exactly where you're listening to us right now and sign up for our free newsletter at our website, yourbirthdaypodcast.com. Ready for those gifts that I just mentioned to start living your life how you want? Take the free quiz on our website and gifts will be dropped to your inbox immediately.
Friends, this episode can be so hard, but it is also special and it can also be validating. So, if you are like Helene and myself and are mothering without a mother, know that we are right there with you. In this episode, we are going to explore the journey of mothering without the presence of your own mother. Whether it's due to loss, estrangement, or other reasons, many individuals are navigating the complexities of raising children, caring for others, or even mothering themselves without the guidance or support of their own maternal figure. We're going to explore the struggles, the growth, and ultimately the unique strength that can come from this experience. Friends, even in the most difficult of moments, you can find gifts. So, this is an invitation to join us as we reflect on the gifts that are emerging from mothering in the absence of our own mother. Before we start, Helene and I really want you to know that if you are not in a place to hear this conversation, give yourself permission to not. Take care of you. Come back when the time feels right for you. We also want to share that this episode is not therapy or a replacement for therapy. Should you find yourself needing additional support, please seek out professional care. Now let's take a moment to get cozy, wrap some hugs around ourselves, get your beverage of choice, and let's explore together. This is an oof, huh?
Yeah, like even as you're saying that, I'm like,
Yeah.
it's an oomph, but you know what? I'm going to take a deep breath in, and I want to try to allow myself to look at it as a scavenger hunt for the gifts,
Can I
right?
just start out? So, we're going to dig into some really tough stuff, but I am somebody who just loves signs, like little kisses, reminders, what may be. And I think when you've lost someone, you're always like looking for something to feel like they're with you. And so, I'm going to share just a real quick story. After my mom died, I was pregnant with my son, and Helene and I both talked about being pregnant and losing our moms. And my mom was born 4/25/44. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, I kept waking up at 4:44 to go to the bathroom. Seems strange, but my mom also loved anytime she saw our birth date on the calendar, or she saw, not the calendar, I take that back, on the clock, anytime she saw our birthday on the clock, or she saw our birthday like somewhere out and about, like in an address or a license plate or something like that, she
Yeah.
would always say a prayer for us. Like that was her thing. And I just realized that this is episode 44, and my number for my mom is 444. And I just think that's a sign. I know. I love that for
With
this
any more
episode. And friends, that was so like not planned.
No, but that's, I think, the beautiful part when you're doing something that's hard, it's looking for something to help ground you in it.
It's
And
looking for those gifts. And my mama just gave me a gift as we do this episode. I
mm,
know.
yeah.
So, with that said, we're just going to
Ugh,
just dig right into that super tough
put on
stuff.
your
Let's just,
right,
I'm really good at just like stepping right on it. I'm not very good at like
a
always being
soft.
kosher. Yeah.
Right, when I'm in the office and I can tell someone's got something big, they're like, "Okay, I'm ready." I'm like, "All right, let me put my seatbelt on. I'm right here with you." So seatbelt it in, pushing it up. We
Yeah.
just gotta do this.
We got to do this. So, what does it mean to mother without a mother? Oh, that is so hard because I think even like as little people, we always envision having like a maternal figure to guide us, to teach us, to show us what it's all about, you know?
And I think there's oftentimes, if you didn't receive that, there's also that messaging, right? Either in movies, maybe with your other friends that you saw,
Mm-hmm.
that maybe their home just felt or ran or looked different than yours.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there is that space of saying, I really want a supportive mother. And I think the beautiful thing about that question you just asked, Christina, is that for everyone that's listening to this, how you define supportive now can
Mm-hmm.
also be very different and unique as we all are. So, what Susie Q might want or need, and what I may have wanted, and Christina may all be different. And there's no
Mm-hmm.
judgment. That's all okay.
100%. And I think, you know, before my mom got sick, I mean, my mom and I were just extremely close, extremely close. And my greatest fear was losing my mom. And I just remember like times I would get like literally as a kid or a young adult, or, my mom would get sick or something like that. I mean, it could have been a cold. And I would just get like panicky, like, and I would just pray, please don't let anything happen to my mom. Please don't let anything happen to mom. Like, it was scary.
It's really scary.
And then when I was finally faced with it, like, holy Toledo. But I think, the grief of losing your mom is just, it's bizarre because, if you lost her like from death or something like that, I think you always envision like life with her because let's be real, like she's always been in your world until she wasn't, right? So, like,
Right.
you lived inside her. If she's, your biological mom, or you've been with her since the very beginning of time, or, she's been a strong maternal figure to you, whoever that mother is for you.
Oh.
And that loss feels profound.
And I think the other piece from what you said, the other piece that's also profound is that I think some people, like, you envision how it may have been, right? Like, I know we've talked about Grandma Jean on here who, like, you know, and my mom, and the difference than you is that, like, I think I lived with a lot of fear that my mom would die most of my life. My mom got really sick at age 13. So my life with my mom is that, like, her illness was such a central part of our life.
Mm,
And yet there was beautiful moments of her silliness, as we've shared some stories,
mm-hmm,
that I think I envisioned, romanticized, hoped that my kids would have had a version of my grandma Jean from my mom. So it was not only the loss of
yes.
her, but once I found out I was pregnant with my son, I pictured how she would have been, because it would have been
Mm,
Oh, just beautiful, like, silly, like, she would have been the
Mhm.
grandma that would have done all the things that probably would have drove me bonkers because
Mhm.
she didn't like me doing it, but it would have came from this place of just creating fun memories. So it was a loss of that, and also the loss, I think, how I would have really envisioned my kids experiencing her or how I thought I would then experience her in my next life stage.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and I think with that comes just like, I mean, I have lots of friends who get to do like mother-daughter trips or, their mom is an integral like grandma who takes care of the kids and things like that. And I've never been like sad for them. I've honestly been so happy that they get to have that. But I won't lie that there isn't like a tinge in me that like wishes I did too. And I think that goes whether you lost your mom or you're estranged from your mom. You still have that. Like you wish there could be some type of connection. And I think estrangement is really hard in its own way because that person is still living on this earth,
Right.
but for whatever reason, they're not healthy to have a relationship with. And that is really hard because I think in that, with that grief, you play way more of the what ifs than somebody who lost their mother because of death, right? Like,
Yeah.
what if this person was well? What if this person could do this? What if this person was sober? What if this person was living like this? Like, that just tears at you constantly.
And for those in the audience who are not familiar with like estrangement, and we're not going to go therapize this, right? Because we're like your
Right.
friend on that couch with warm coffee. But it's if you go back to our episode on like limiting your invites, if
Mm-hmm.
you have a mom or a mother figure who is very unhealthy, and in order to take care of yourself, you limit that invite. I think
Yeah.
the other piece, in addition to what you're saying, Christina, it's also that big question of the why.
Yeah.
Why doesn't she just choose? Why can't she do this? So it's
Yeah.
like the dance of the ghost of the why, as well
Yep.
as you just shared.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
the griefs are similar and they're different, I would
abs
say,
yeah,
and you can have both. And then I think, like, if you've been estranged and that mother dies, that's another level of grief. Like, there can be so much grief around it. And, and it's like the little moments, like, you're parenting your child and your child does something funny and it reminds you of your like yourself as a kid, or you have a question like, did I do that? Was I like that? You're just trying to find those similarities and you can't ask because they're not there. Like, that's a weird feeling.
it is a weird.
Or the grandparents' day at school, which I see schools like slowly evolving away from that, but that can be hard.
It's all a bunch of, like, the messy heart. I think it's
It's so
the
messy.
vision of how the relationship was, and then whether the messy is due to, like, that estrangement or, like, a sudden death or, like, in my case, my mom was sick. I mean, she was sick since 13, like, most of her life, so all of my life,
Hmm.
that it's all just hard. But we then say you have to be in the messy to recognize how you feel and
Hmm.
inviting you to have those feelings, right? Not running away from it so that you can get to the other place of experiencing, can you still
Yeah.
have connection with them and what that looks like?
Do you remember your first Mother's Day without your mom?
Oh, I don't remember it because I think I was still just kind of getting through it. So
Yeah.
I guess I don't right now. I'm trying to picture it, but I don't. I'm sure my head
Yeah.
something beautiful, but I don't remember it.
My mom went in the hospital right before or right after her birthday, but before Mother's Day. And so I actually had all her Mother's Day gifts that she never opened.
Ugh,
Oh,
ugh,
yeah. And my Julie was
ugh,
amazing
ugh.
and said, "What do you want to do with this?" And I said, "I don't." And she said, "Would you like me to take care of it?" And I said, "Yes." One of the gifts Julie gave me. But I do remember my first Mother's Day, and my mother in law was still living, and she was so kind. She was so kind. She said, "What do you need to do for this day?" And I said, I need to celebrate you. And I don't mean this to hurt your feelings, but I don't really want a lot of acknowledgement towards me. I said, I just really want to focus on you, if that's okay. And she said, I'm honored. But I said, I just, like, let's, whatever you would love to do, I want to do. And I just needed that distraction. And she was so kind, like, just so kind. It's interesting. We're going to come up to an episode called Supporting Mothers. And I think when you're in that mother in law role, you don't always know how to support your daughter in law. My mother in law was the example of how to support your daughter in
I
law.
mean, your Julie, your sister-in-law, and your mother-in-law are
Oh,
just
God.
the me of just healthy and kind and genuine and
I
see
literally
you.
like struck the lottery
You
with this.
did. You scored
I
great.
totally did.
Uh,
Yeah.
love that for you.
And so my whole idea was just to not think about it. And my husband was good. I got a gift, that kind of thing. Like I think my daughter did something cute at preschool and that was that and my son was just a baby. So, it was just like just get me through it and get me past it because right after Mother's Day was coming up on the annual anniversary, the first anniversary of my mom's death and I was just like I just want it over. Like that was my way of dealing with it. So, and I remember walking through a friend of mine and the first Mother's Day, and her mom didn't celebrate holidays for her own religious reasons.
Yeah.
But the first Mother's Day was like super hard. She's like, and she found it weird because she's like, I wouldn't have celebrated Mother's Day with my mom because my mom didn't celebrate holidays.
Right.
But she still felt heavy realizing she was living this world without her mom.
And I think Mother's Day was hard because Mother's Day, I mean, my grandmother was still obviously still here.
Mm-hmm.
But my grandfather, like even when after I moved away, like he always would like make sure like we went out to, brunch for my mom, my grandmother. He would show up with flowers, my brother and I. So Mother's Day, even all these years later, it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's 20 years since my mother passed. And there's still that like oomph.
Mm-hmm.
And what I do now, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about rituals, is that like when it's like her birthday or Mother's Day, like I allow myself to like get in connection of like, so on my mother's birthday, I'll be like she loved coffee. So now I'm like, oh, I guess that's where so I find like a really good coffee shop, make sure I take my kids. So I try to get in connection of how I can experience them in a different way. But you're right, that absence, like your friend, and then you don't know what to do. So I want to give that gift to everyone that if you are coming up to your first
Yeah.
and you don't know what to do, that is so normal. And if someone asks you, you could take the gift from Christina and really assert what you need and tell people.
100%. And I think you've got to vocalize what you need and not shy away with it, And I think I always believe, and I've said this in other episodes too, that like life throws you things so that you can learn how to handle it from your own wisdom, from, podcasts, reading books, friends, things like that. But I also think it's to be able to pay it forward and be able to support others when they have that experience. And I was one of the first in my kind of friendship circles to lose their mom and or to lose a parent, period. And so I'm very grateful that I've been gifted the opportunities to walk that with other people. The friend I shared with that lost her mom, the craziest part of it is our moms ended up in the same hospice room where they passed. Our moms took their last breath, and our moms both believed in afterlife. And so I just think, like, in my world, like, my mom went to heaven, and, you know, she and I think that our moms would have been best friends in another life. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. In a terrible tragedy way, I guess. We found good in it and peace in it. Like, we found peace in it. and it was a gift for us. And so I think, it's finding those little gifts in the moments, whether it be somebody being extra kind to you, or your children giving you an extra hug, or for me, a mother in law who just understood that it was a tough day for me. And I don't remember being that supportive when she lost her mother. I think I was kind of ignorant to it. And so the fact that she could give me that grace without having had it from me was a gift, right? And so, it teaches resilience. I think, it also can be quite empowering, right? Like, we all of a sudden learn how absolutely fucking strong we are.
I was gonna say, right, if you don't have, like, I love what you said before, if you have that, like, oomph moment, you're like, "I wanna call, I have the question." The resilience can also be that if in that moment, let's say you don't have your mother or your aunt or that girlfriend to call, you could take a deep breath and trust your judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, it
Mm-hmm.
empowers you. You have that moment, I don't have anyone to call, and I have an opportunity to lean into trusting and believing in me.
Yeah. Literally, just before recording this podcast, I had to call Helene because I had a bit of a moment in caring for my dad, and I'm not going to embarrass him. But, my go to would have been after something like that to have called my mom and giggled and been like, that was fun. And nothing super gross, friends, don't worry.
Right.
But
It's fine.
anyway, it would have been to call her. And
Yeah.
I literally finished texting you and was like, hey, I'm running late. And then I was like, oh, I should call. Oh, no, can't call her. And then I giggled and I was like, kind of glad you weren't here because you would have been like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a moment like that. And the cutest thing was my dad said to me as I was helping him, mom's missed out a lot on life and things that like have happened because it's been 8 years since she passed. He's like, and I'm just really grateful that I've been here to experience it all. Yeah.
Ooh. So what a gift, right? That the other people in your life can do the and. That
Yeah.
there's a part of me that's really sad that they didn't get to experience. And I'm grateful that I get to, which kind of reminds me of Grandma Jean. So Grandma Jean, when she allowed herself to really get in connection with her sadness, which wasn't very often, but she would carry this picture of my mom and my
Mm.
uncle with her because he also
Mm.
passed. And she would always be like, a mother should not outlive two of her
Oh
children.
my gosh, I can't even imagine.
So when you
Oh,
talk
Grandma
about
Jean.
strength, I know.
Wow.
And And I would say, "Grandma, like, I can't even imagine."
No.
And yet, you are supposed to still be, and that's
Hmm.
what you give all of us, and I don't think Christina and I are trying to, like, sprinkle on, like, toxic positivity.
Oh gosh, no.
It's not what we're not doing that, we're just saying because 'cause we've lived it, right? I'm 20
Mm-hmm.
years out without my mom, Christina is 8, that it is hard and there still can be beauty. We're
Mm-hmm.
just inviting you not to stay stuck in that loss and to
Mm-hmm.
still celebrate your life while also learning
Mm-hmm.
how you can keep growing and have connection with a parent you lost.
Yeah, and as time has gone on, actually, like, I have found a lot of joy in Mother's Day because, I don't get me wrong, like, I would love to have my mom and my mother in law here, like, but I can't, right? So you have to accept what you have. And I have found it to be kind of nice because I watch all my friends who have to like race around to find the perfect gift to, you know, create the perfect brunch or have their mother over, like all these things,
Yeah.
all these things. And as a parent, the month of May is fucking chaos, right? End of school year, all the shit you gotta do, spring here, like you're planting like a madwoman, like all the y'all, right? Like
Oh, yeah.
May erupts. And so the fact that I can be like, I want to do nothing, like order carry out sushi,
Yeah.
and we are going to plant all my flowers in my yard. And I have like my kids get made to plan it with me because it's Mother's Day and I can add that guilt trip. Ha ha! And I
Right.
love it. It is so fun.
Yeah.
And so I get to make it like my day. And I think a lot of mothers don't get to do that till way later in life. So I've chosen to find my gift in it.
And I love that you say, like, May is really stressful,
Hmm.
and you can take that gift from us, right? Because here's the thing, when you lose your mom, whether it's through estrangement or a loss, something happened to you you didn't
Hmm.
expect.
Right.
And then you get to choose what to do with it. And Christina is allowing herself to just receive the gifts of like honoring what she needs in that space. Like through that loss became an it's a birthday day.
It did.
And we
It
didn't
did.
want it that way, right? But we've had no choice. Christina and I, as well as many of the women that are listening to us, you did not get to say if you lost your mom or your
Right.
aunt, whoever that was for you.
But you can practice self compassion. You can be
Yeah.
gentle to yourself. You can be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
I also think when you've lost your mother or you're estranged from your mother, it's really an opportunity to nurture your inner child and figure out who you are. Like, it is a moment of identity crisis of like, who the fuck am I without a mother?
Right.
And who do I want to be? Like, it allowed me to just like really be individualized. And one of the things that stood out with me was my mom was like super anti breastfeeding. She just found it disgusting.
Mm.
Like, it grossed her out,
Right.
which was fine. So clearly I wasn't breastfed. I think I'm okay. Like, hats off to who, if it's not your jam. And so I felt like super judged about breastfeeding my daughter and like struggled with it. And I kind of wonder, not in a judgmental way towards my mom, but just like if that affected the fact that like she never really breastfed very well and we only did it for about 3 months.
Mm.
When my son came along, it became like a moment of my quiet and opportunity for me to just quietly think and like process my grief. And that baby, he solidly breastfed
You're the champion.
for a year plus. And so it allowed me to just do my own parenting differently, like the way I wanted to do it differently, and
Right. So
not feel like I
like,
had to please anybody else.
I love that. Right. The gift is that some a horrible thing happened.
Mhm.
And with that, I wasn't forced, but I accepted and I invited myself to really get in connection of how I want to be and how I want to show up as a mom.
Yeah. And it was, it was hard
Yeah.
and it was healing. And I think losing your mom, however you lost your mom, can be hard and healing. It can be both. And so I think you can heal that inner child, you can heal that wound, you can process that grief, which is really fucking hard, and you can heal.
And I think the piece of like you and I sharing our stories is that hopefully it can bring some hope that it doesn't stay forever. Like if you're feeling brutally raw right now, it doesn't stay.
No.
And one of the things that, I think when you and I met all those years ago, it wasn't until we really started talking that you were like, oh, like you were pregnant and then you were pregnant. I mean, I met your mom at your
Yep.
shower, but I
Mhm.
don't think we really disclosed more of that until like our relationship built. And I think
Mhm.
that's the other gift that you can get for those out there is that you can create community with chosen family. And I remember I had a woman years ago and she had lost her mother and that boy was so tremendous for her.
You know what I just realized?
What?
I think I have a picture of you and my mom at my shower.
I
Random
remember
thought.
meeting her at the Vegas.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go look for that now. You sent me on a mission. Anyway, I totally got distracted. That's my job, is to distract us.
That's okay. I was like, "Whoa, what happened? What was the memory?" But
I totally
what
took us off
she
track.
ended up doing because at that moment of her life before she did some, like, really incredible work is that she wanted to find other young women who had this experience. And she allowed herself to kind of go on a journey of, like, interviewing and finding people, and about 10 years later she had cultivated this amazing
Mm.
group of women that she met who had not the same story, but a similar story. And then what they did every Mother's Day is they got together. And throughout the different seasons of their life, they introduced their children, their new partner. She allowed herself to no longer feel alone and yet to feel seen and visible by finding like minded women. And it created this incredible family what they did.
Mm.
So it provides also opportunities to find chosen family. And again, not something you ever wanted to do. You may not have ever envisioned this happening. And yet when it does, you do have the opportunity to go back to that great word that Christina said to feel empowered with what do you want to do with it now. We would love to bring all
Yeah.
of your moms as long as they're healthy and whole and all that, but we can't. So we're talking about what do you do next?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think it's creating a ritual or a way of honoring your mother or honoring yourself,
Talk more
right?
about honoring yourself.
Well, I think honoring who you've become without a mother, like honoring your growth, honoring your changes, your evolution of who you are now for the better, even through this trauma and heartache.
Yeah.
I think you have an opportunity to really honor who you've become and see it as personal growth and self discovery, which is hard. It is fucking hard. We're not minimizing that.
No.
And it's beautiful in its own way. It's like a messy beautiful because on the other side comes this just incredibly strong, capable woman who was always on the inside, but didn't need to be that strong. And now she is.
And I think for me, like a little bit like a self-disclosure story. I remember like, if you've been hanging out with us, I had like a cancer situation about 8.5 years ago. And I had a little hiccup. I was in the hospital, like a very unexpected 6 days, very early on in starting treatment. And I just remembered, because my husband was going home every night, take care of the kids and, all the things. And I remember like I think that was one of the strongest moments that I ever got in connection with her because
Hmm.
she was in and out of the hospital most of my life. And I think I
Mm-hmm.
leaned on her when I was in the hospital to help get me through this and to help guide me when I got out. So I was
Mm.
able to say, "Hi, like I need you now."
I love
And I'm
that.
not a wooey person. Like I'm a very logical thinker. I'm analytical. Like I need the real. But in that moment of my own vulnerability, I needed something bigger than maybe what I thought I could do, and I had this incredible guide of
Yeah.
someone who raised 2 kids while having a horrible illness, and I allowed myself to just say, "It's now." So,
Wow.
yeah.
I love that you let her empower you even though she wasn't here on this earth,
Yeah.
which was such a gift. Yeah. So friends, this is really an intersection of grief and it can be an opportunity for gratitude and finding gratitude in your pain, reflecting how both can exist within you and shape your experience. And that means finding sadness and, as Grandma Jean would say, gladness. Gladness for who you've become despite this immeasurable loss, and finding, your inner strength. So we know that healing is not linear. You're going to have a mix of emotions. I always say that, like, grief and healing is like a toddler coloring a page,
Mhm.
right? Like it's just everywhere. And if you can't see me, I'm like pretending like I'm coloring like a toddler, but it's crazy. And then, out of it, you become a beautiful butterfly.
And again, because it doesn't have to be linear, like you said, it could be a little messy, like that toddler page. But what we know is that it will go forward. The moment that you have right now,
Mm-hmm.
or even if like some oomph got brought up with this episode, that dust storm is going to settle, and you can acknowledge that was a hard moment, and I know it's not forever.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So, friends, squeeze yourself a little tighter. We know this may have been hard, and we also know one day it'll be beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know when the beautiful will come, but if you have that moment that you're ever like, is the hard and is the suck of it going to ever stop? Listen to Christina and I. We both have been able to cultivate connection and
Mm-hmm.
communication and like relationships with our moms, even though they're not here,
Yeah.
through rituals, through memories.
Mm-hmm.
Christine's going to go through all our pictures and see if she finds me and her in a little
Yeah.
bit.
And signs. We get signs.
Yeah. You just have to be open to it.
Absolutely.
We would be honored if you found this helpful or if you know someone else that needs just a little bit of love and understanding and validation support that you shared this with them. If you found this helpful, go back to where you just followed, listening to us and leave us a positive review. This community only gets as good and as big and as broad as you invite other people to join us. Hang out with us during the week. We're on all the platforms. Where are we, Christina?
Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, YouTube, and on all the podcast platforms.
And if you don't want to wait till Thursday and you want a little gift beforehand, check us out. We do gifts from the couch every Monday. Until then,
Happy birthday, friends.